It's astounding to be standing in front of everyone else that I know of today. And Judenite community, friends and families, my heart sings seeing you all here. Speaking of singing, let me begin by asking you, do you enjoy writing poetry? Oh, thank you so much for that very enthusiastic answer. Many of us probably love songs, but would probably be reacting unsavourily if we are asked to write some lyrics or a poem for that. Some might find it cheesy. Others might find it unnecessary. One might ask, Miss, of all the problems of the world, why would we bother with poetry? Is there anything of value that poetry can actually bring to us? For me as a language teacher, hearing this excuse actually disheartens me because I failed to make my student realize that poetry inspires introspection. Being introspective is a necessary trait of a healthy and productive individual. In a world where we are always asked to look up, to look out, problems can arise if we fail to look in. People would become lost or toxic without the proper inspection of their mental and their emotional state. And since we are already talking about introspection, have you ever considered that poetry can be a lifeline? It can be a means for a cathartic release of an overjoyed soul or a call for help from someone who is in distress. However, and I can never stress this enough, remember that if poetry and writing or whatever things that you seem to enjoy seems to be insufficient to help you in your struggles, know that help is always available. Reach out to your counselors, to a trusted adult, to your teachers, to your family, because as much as your physical health matters, your mental health matters too. Now, going back to our topic of poetry as a helpful lifeline, let me now introduce to you a coping mechanism that I tried using and a concept that's not very new, the concept of redemptive poetry. It's not a replacement for therapy, mind you, okay? But time and again, we are informed that writing is a good start to actually set our minds at ease, to exercise our brains and regulate our emotions. It follows no rhyme or meter, redemptive poetry, okay? You just have to begin this poem by seeing your life in it. It may help save an individual from the ills of the world. Of course, you may also use a pattern. Okay. As a teacher, I cannot help it. I always give out patterns. For starters, here's mine. Okay, that's my poem, and I'm sharing it with you. So in case that you wanted to begin delving into poetry, you can use that. All right? It's a very simple structure, mind you. Okay? You can see that in every line, you just have to have an adjective, the first, to describe the subject. Okay? And you have a verb and the complement. That goes to the 3 lines, save for the last line. The parallelism and the rhyming are purely optional, but it does add a little artistic touch to it, right? So can we pretend that you're my students? Can we all read it together? I can't help it. I told you I'm a teacher. Okay, I can't help it. Let's read. Ready? 1, 2, 3, begin. The first doubt is a blot. The first fail is a mess. The first try is a dot, the last one to redress. Oh, very good. You'll be getting a high grade on recitation, everyone. Of course. Being an author or a writer, we always have a purpose, right? Behind every line is the author's message that we would like to share. And of course, this is the first line in mine. And also as a teacher, I would want to guide you through analyzing poetry analysis, okay? But this time, I'm going to use my own experiences as an example. The first line says, the first doubt is a blot. Growing up, my parents may not have enough money to send us to the summer camps that most of the Judenite students are actually attending to. But it's always admirable that they have this belief in our innate abilities. The parental trust that I received from my parents is actually important because it prepared me and my siblings for the first blots of doubts in our lives. Here I was in grade 6 way back then. It was already flood damaged, but I was able to salvage it. That was me and my science teacher standing right side of me. She inspired me to have my poem published in our school newspaper. The trust that I received from her was confidence boosting. I was happy to be creating poems. Essays, on the other hand, were pretty unheard of in our school because we never had theme writings way back then. In high school, I wasn't that motivated to write because it was more restrictive. Writing became more restrictive. But I still managed to get in our school paper, and in an instance of a training session for my campus journalism, my moderator gave me my first writing prompt, saying that a good writer can find inspiration from the most mundane of things. You know what she did? She placed a dot in the middle of my paper and told me to write something about the dot. I got annoyed and frustrated with that dot. For me, it was a stain in what I thought of was my creative liberty when I was young. So what I did, I submitted a haphazardly written story that was not about that dot. Okay, I defied her. But in the end, most of our training went to waste and we lost the tournament. I started doubting myself too. What hurt the most was that I felt like I've let her down because she has always believed in us. So regardless who we are, we will experience several instances of doubts. These doubts are like blots trying to frustrate us, to make us anxious and hinder our growth. But when in doubt, seek those who are willing to put their faith in you. You have your family, your friends, or in a less than ideal family dynamic, you can always rely on your teachers. Someone here in SJCS will be willing to listen to you, especially to those who were my students and to those who are currently enrolled. Someone here will always be willing to listen to you. Now, let's go to the second line of the poem. It reads, "The first fail is a mess." College was a time of uncertainty for me. I struggled to thrive academically in UP Manila as I lacked the skill for the course that I wanted to pursue. Likewise, I had to stop. I stopped for a semester and helped my mom and dad because of some financial constraints. And I found myself escaping reality through reading and writing. And when the family was able to recover financially, I transferred and took up secondary education, major in English at the University of the East. I felt comfortable with my studies finally. And this was also where I had my first brush of ghostwriting and competitive creative writing. You know what? I came from a poor family, and against my better judgment, and because of the temptation of money, I agreed to ghostwrite for a housemate from a different school. She said it was for a contest, and she'd pay me win or lose. It was an essay in Filipino, and of course, we lost. I'm an English major after all. No harm, I guess. Right? I was wrong. I was wrong. My other friend who joined the same contest qualified for the finals. And you know what? She is a nursing student who wrote her essay in English. There I was, a language major, failing to even qualify in my native tongue. I feasted on imposter syndrome for months on end. I became too sensitive to criticism. I prolifically wrote poems just to cope, because in my viewpoint, poetic license is absolute and no one can question it. It took me longer to realize that there are things that will make us happier beyond money, such as that feeling when you have accomplished a well-honed craft, like a better written essay or a very nice poem. Many of us actually fear failure. To say that the repercussions of failure on our well-being and self-worth are messy is a clear understatement. Failure dehumanizes us. It's either by making us give up too soon or make us chase perfection obsessively. You know what? We have to allow ourselves to become vulnerable. We must learn from our failures, but we must be patient with ourselves. After all, excellence, one of the core values of SJCS, is not the absence of flaws, but the continuous practice to improve. Excellence does not happen overnight. It happens over time. If all else fails, turn to what gives you hope, a reason to live. Some people find it in prayer, some in meditation. Some people find it in their families and friends, in their pets. I have a pet. I love my pet cat. Sometimes it gives me a reason to live, because if I don't, who's gonna feed him? Right? Some find it in their dreams and aspirations. But whatever your motivation is, do it for you. Do it for you. And then let's go to the third line of the poem. It reads, "The first try is a dot." You know, life gets in the way. When I started working, the pen actually lost its metonymy, and it became just a plain old writing instrument. Writing for amusement became a thing of the past, and this ship of inspiration has long sailed out, and many of my inspirations have come and gone. One of which, my youngest brother. One of my creative inspirations, the devourer of my baked donuts, and my co-composers of random shenanigans, passed away in 2018. Then, of course, the stress of the 2020 pandemic, coupled with my own personal health troubles with stage 2 breast cancer last 2021 and 2022, they likewise extinguished my passion for the pen. It feels hopeless, because too much adulting has taken these creative winds off my sails. However, every now and then when I brush off the dust of those gifts and piles of letters that I have at home, signs of the years of teaching. Okay? And when the occasion calls for me to write the scripts, to train the students how to write, and to edit articles, I feel that different sense of purpose. All those years of writing, frustration, and improving and practice are paying off. It took me quite some time to realize that dots are both ends and beginnings. When I was young, I saw dots as the finiteness of writing, as if it ends all the writing. But then I come to think of it and realize that a dot is also when a writing begins. That moment when the nib of your pen touches that paper, you start to write. A dot starts something. We change. It is what's constant, right? But never ever let change stop you from pursuing your passions. No matter how late in life you think it is, always remember that the first try is a dot, as simple as a dot. And the next best time to start is now. Think of what you love and it will come naturally. We're going to the last line of the poem, and it reads, "The last one to redress. As long as we live, we grow, we make things right, we make amends, we improve. And when I look back, I'm actually a little disappointed with my older self because me, my older self, placed a limit on my younger self." Prior to this talk, I remembered this challenge of my high school moderator, the one that I was telling you a while ago about the dot, okay? About writing something as mundane as the dot. It actually took me 19 years and multiple perspective shifts to finally fulfill that high school challenge and redeem myself. Now, I'm not just writing about the dot, I'm writing and talking about that dot. This talk actually deserves the alternate title of A High School Activity, 19 Years in the Making. Studentites, friends and family, words are very powerful. They can hurt as much as they can change, redress, and redeem. So when you set forth to the world, choose to be that person who carries faith in blots of doubts, who brings hope to oneself and to others in failures and messes, who looks forward to the beauty of both ending and beginning dots lovingly, and who spreads kindness in redress. Find renewed vigor in your passions, in your voices, in your verses. Rise above to write about it. Thank you, and Meliora.